It would be Jeudy. And last week on Fantasy Live, I talked about 5 trade targets. Justin Herbert and A.J. Brown were my top 2, but they this week changed things a little bit for them. Jeudy was number 3. He was on bye. I think people might, they might forget, not about Jeudy, but the fact that since he's returned, he hasn't had a monstrous game yet, a big game. People might just be thinking that Jeudy's okay. He's a solid flex option or something like that. I think his upside is a lot higher. I think the fact that he's getting all the volume is what we want to see. I think the fantasy production will come, especially now, a week after the bye. Just more time for him to get reacclimated in this offense. So I really like Jeudy as a trade target. He is clearly their number 1 target when he is healthy. So I'm looking to go out and get him. And he has a very favorable schedule the rest of the way.
I mean, he has been the reason you've said repeatedly that Cortland Sutton looks sort of droppable just because when Jeudy is there, there's really not enough volume for anybody else in that offense. I'm going to stay, though, in Denver and say Melvin Gordon is a guy that you want to target. And we've talked about him the last few weeks on this show in terms of what it means for Javonte Williams. The fact that even though Williams is playing well, Gordon is doing enough to hang on to the job and get those opportunities, especially down near the goal line. So if that's the case, sounds like a guy you might want on your roster. He's going to get those touches. He's continuing to run hard. He's continuing to be productive, and he's scoring touchdowns. See, 10 or more touches in all 10 games this season. He is getting those looks. And look, just as easily you could probably make the same case for Javonte Williams, even though he doesn't seem to have the touchdown upside. But there are some really nice games left on the schedule. You know he's going to get the volume. And on top of it, it may not cost you a king's ransom in terms of what you have to give up to get a guy like Melvin Gordon. Right now, running backs are at a premium. So if there's a team with Melvin Gordon in your league that isn't really going anywhere, now's the time to put something together and see if maybe you can just get that second running back to kind of help you through the postseason. Would be a good job. On the other side, guys that you might want to get rid of, who's on that list for you?
I know this sounds kind of crazy because he leads, or at least he led the NFL coming into this week in touchdowns, but it's James Conner. I know he's got 13 touchdowns on the year, but he has been very touchdown dependent until lately when I know he's still on a crazy scoring streak right now, but he's been getting more usage as a pass catcher. He has 13 catches in the last 3 games. He had 5, though, up until that point. And after the Cardinals bye next week, Chase Edmonds is eligible to return, I believe. They're going to have Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins back. So my fear is that James Conner is going to go back into a role like he was in early on in the year. Maybe he gets more usage on the ground, but I don't think the Cardinals are going to get shy away from using Chase Edmonds as their pass catcher. I think at full health, they like having him in that role and Conner in the role that he was playing. So I think right now, while the perception is that James Conner is an RB1 who's going to score double-digit multiple touchdowns each week, then I think you could trade him potentially for like a wide receiver 1 or something like that. So I would definitely be entertaining the option of selling James Conner.
Cliff Kingsbury has been very consistent about kind of instituting a 60-40 split with his running backs. And when Chase Edmonds was healthy, he was more on the 60 side of that, which does make Conner a little bit more touchdown dependent. It's been great so far. It's a hard way to live. I would say this. So in the interest of full disclosure, originally my name here was Joe Mixon, and then he went out and had a huge game against the Raiders. And I was like, I still think there's a scenario where you can sort of trade Joe Mixon away, but I think the guy that might be a better option to sort of move on from is Miles Sanders, because on paper, at least, he is going to be the number 1 running back in Philadelphia. But, Jordan Howard is still there. Boston Scott is still getting opportunities. The schedule is not particularly great. Even though the Eagles have become a lot more run-heavy, Sanders being back in the mix does make this a little bit more of a muddled situation. I think he's he's got enough name cachet, enough opportunity that you can sort of put him out there in a trade and look to get something decent back in return. But I think if you're trying to roll with Miles Sanders and start him on a week-to-week basis, it's just going to be really, really hard. And I come back to what I said all off season, that we love Miles Sanders, but I don't think the Eagles love Miles Sanders in the same sort of way. And they just keep showing it by the guys they bring in, by how they use their other running backs. He's just never going to be the workhorse in Philadelphia that I think we want him to be. So this seems like a good opportunity to try and flip Miles Sanders for something else and see if you can maybe strengthen some other parts of your roster to help you get into the postseason. So those are our targets to trade for and trade away. We know that you out there have trade questions, so we decided to pull a few of them from Twitter.com and see if we can answer them as best as possible. So we'll start with this one from Brandon Swayze. I don't know if he's any relation to Patrick. He asks, Javonte Williams for Alex Collins and Rashad Bateman. Feel weird flexing Mike Williams lately. Full disclosure, he sent this before the Sunday night game where Mike Williams ended up, having a pretty nice night. So I don't know if he still feels weird about flexing Mike Williams, but the question remains: Javonte Williams for Alex Collins and Rashad Bateman. Thumbs up or thumbs down from you, Florio?
I would give this a thumbs down. I like Rashad Bateman, but to me, I feel like if you have to decide each week between him and Mike Williams, that's going to be a headache. And I feel like Alex Collins is a big downgrade to Javonte Williams. I just really don't like Alex Collins as a fantasy piece. Whereas, as much as I agree with you, Marcus, I like Melvin Gordon a lot. I think there's still a little bit of upside there with Javonte, that maybe they get him a little bit more usage after the bye or something like that. And he's played well. Like, God forbid Melvin Gordon got hurt. His ceiling then is a lot higher than Alex Collins, who is playing at his ceiling now. So I would hold on to Williams.
I would agree with you, just because the giving up Javonte Williams and getting Alex Collins back in exchange feels like a big loss there. And as much as I like Rashad Bateman, I'm sort of with you on trying to figure him out week to week. So I would much rather have Javonte Williams in that situation, and maybe he's the guy you flex if you're worried about Mike Williams. You flex Javonte Williams over Mike Williams, and maybe that helps you out a little bit better. I'd also be curious to know who your other running backs are that you're willing to sort of make this deal there. But that seems like two no's on that one, Brandon. Next one from Dustin Payne, who asks, Antonio Gibson for Mike Evans, half-point PPR. Don't know if I should let Gibson go. Have CMC and J-Rob. Wide receivers are Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown with Cooks on the bench. I mean, my immediate response is I would hold on to Gibson just because you already seem pretty kind of loaded at wide receiver.
Yeah, that is on its head, I was like, yeah, I think Gibson for Mike Evans is a good trade. But then I realized, you have three good receivers, and then if you give up Gibson, what is your RB depth looking like? And I like having at least a solid RB that I know, hey, especially with Christian McCaffrey and James Robinson as my starters, those two have been banged up as of late. So is Gibson. So I feel like you need the RB depth there.
I would completely agree. So I would hold on. So far, that's two no's on these trade options. All right, third question comes from Jack. Should I offer James Conner for DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin, or hold James Conner? Well, you sort of answered that, right? You just said James Conner seems like a trade away option. So I guess the only other question is, do you want DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin?
I want Terry McLaurin. He is my guy. He showed us yesterday the upside that he has. I would even say before accepting this trade, I might even shop Connor a little bit longer to see if I can get maybe an even better receiver. But if I have to choose between these two, it's Terry McLaurin for me.
That's an easy call for me too. I would definitely go McLaurin. And a lot of the reasons that we talked about with James Conner, with Chase Edmonds coming back, with Nuke Hopkins and Kyler Murray coming back, that seems to lessen his opportunity. So this feels like a sell high sort of opportunity with Conner, and if McLaurin is one of the names on the table, that's the one I'm taking there. All right, last one here. This one from, who you fooling? Yes, A.J. Dillon for Terry McLaurin, or A.J. Dillon for J.D. McKissick and Elijah Moore. This is interesting.
This is a good question. As much as I like Elijah Moore here, I'm going to do it for Terry McLaurin. And A.J. Dillon is a really good running back, but I am anticipating that we get Aaron Jones back after this week when the Packers, they play this week, then they have a bye. So I think we're going to see after that bye, we're going to see a lot of Aaron Jones again in our lives. So because of that, I would take the potential wide receiver one in Terry McLaurin.
I think that's probably the move there. I know Elijah Moore has been hot the last couple of weeks, and there's probably a lot more opportunity for him there. But if you're asking me to choose between the Washington offense and the Jets offense, I'm going to take Washington. And as much as I liked J.D. McKissick, it seems like Antonio Gibson is starting to get some more touches and some more opportunities there. So maybe his value is starting to shrink as well. Whereas we know Terry McLaurin is going to continue to eat because they still need a second pass catcher They just don't have one. It's become a lost season for Curtis Samuel, so they need somebody to throw the football to, and that's who it is.
I dream of the day, Marcus, where Terry McLaurin gets consistent quarterback play. That's all I want for him.
I saw Mina Kimes tweeted about Terry McLaurin and how she wished he could get a legitimate quarterback, and the only thought that ran through my head is, will he be Allen Robinson 2.0? Like, I hope not. Like, I hope not.
Man, let's get Russell Wilson and Terry McLaurin on like the same team together or something like that. That would be amazing.
I am down for that. That would be a lot of fun. Absolutely. All right. So best of luck to all of you who are looking to make some trades or who have some trade offers sitting on the table. Again, the NFL.com trade deadline is on Friday, so one last chance to sort of put some offers together and see what you can get together for your stretch run.